A revolt is brewing with questions of gender and sexuality at the centre of a census storm. Today, the government stood by its decision to exclude those questions amid intense backlash from the community it claims to be protecting.
Deputy PM Richard Miles says that he doesn't want to cause divisive debate on this issue. And to Mr Miles, I say, girl, you just did.
It's a count of the country's population that takes place every 5 years, painting a picture of who we are, where we live, what services we need. From schools to housing to healthcare, the census is used by government to decide where public funds should go. The aim? To ensure every community gets its fair share.
Data informs public policy, and if we have the right data, we can make better public decisions.
And following a year of community consultation, 2026 was the year Labor had promised to count the number of LGBTQIA Australians for the first time, with questions on sexuality and gender in the census.
Just makes sense to me that we would want to find out, finally, just how many people in Australia are actually straight.
But this week, they backflipped.
We don't want to open up a divisive debate in relation to this issue. The last thing we want to do is inflict that debate on a sector of our community right now.
The Sex Discrimination Commissioner today joining a chorus of voices calling on the government to reverse the controversial call as the backlash mounts.
I think we should reconsider the decision to formulate the questions in the next census. We should include people and we should include the LGBTIQ community.
While it's estimated to be 11%, the true number of LGBTQI Australians is unknown.
Unless we're counted, the government is blind when it comes to making decisions about the programs and funding that it dedicates to meeting the needs of our communities.
LGBTQI Aussies are twice as likely to experience poor mental health, facing higher levels of discrimination, stigma, exclusion and barriers to health and support services.
We know that resources and support is thin on the ground.
But the government today doubled down.
We want to avoid the kind of nastiness and weaponisation of some of these issues. We saw some of that around the Olympics.
Peter Dutton proving the point, calling the questions a
woke agenda, which I think is at odds with the vast majority of Australians.
The decision, advocates say, affecting more than just public policy.
We just want to be counted, we want to be seen, we'd really love to be visible. We have been here all along.
Well, April Long spearheaded calls to have this data included on the next census. She took the matter to the Human Rights Commission back in 2021. She joins us now. April, how do you feel now when you found out that the government was scrapping the plan to include those questions?
You know, I was absolutely gutted, because we'd worked so closely with the ABS, the expert panel, and of course the current government to really make sure that we didn't repeat the mistakes of the 2021 census, and we got it right in 2026 and included all families.
So, April, why is it so important to you to have these questions on the census?
On a personal level, as a parent, when I completed the census for, my son, Kyson, who was 9 months old at the time, we were unable to put mother and mother. So Kyson has two mums, but we were forced to put father, country of birth, was constantly asked about heritage, what was the ancestry of Kyson's father. And straight away we realised that this wasn't a census for our family. There was that sense of exclusion, not feeling like we belong, but also as a bit of a data nerd, I was like, we're not collecting the right data here, and for me, I want to be able to say to my son, there's this many kids just like you, and on a policy level, as a CEO of an addiction recovery service, I want to be able to make sure that we have good policy and, we know how many LGBTIQ plus Australians there are in our community and what the needs are around mental health and addiction and, ensuring that we're able to support the community. And at the moment, we just simply don't have that data.
Understand your point about data. The census is the Olympics for sociologists, I get it. The Deputy PM, though, has his reasons. So he said they're doing this too, and this is a quote, avoid the nastiness and weaponisation of these issues. We saw how nasty things got during the Voice referendum, for example. I mean, you could possibly even go back to the plebiscite earlier, last decade now. Can you see why the government would want to prevent that sort of thing from happening?
Look, I think, you mentioned the plebiscite, and that's a great example. In 2017, as a community, we all had to deal with, people going and having a vote on whether or not we had the right to get married. And I remember I was at Bunnings like any good lesbian, and, up in the sky it said vote no, and I had to call my partner and say, don't go outside, don't go outside until I get home, because I didn't want her to see that vote no in the sky. So, what I would say to comments like that is that, nothing in this country has been achieved without, the resilience in our community, the need to take a stand. I mean, it wasn't until 1971 that our census counted Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians, and, the 1967 referendum fixed that. So, we have got a census that is robust, that has been able to move with the times. I think those comments are a little bit naive around, our community. I think we all want a census that counts every family and every child.
Do you think everyone would be comfortable answering questions for the government about their own sexuality and gender?
If people don't feel comfortable, then they wouldn't answer those questions. But it's really important that we get the data for the community. So having those questions there means that we'll be able to get that picture of the nation.
And also so we know where to build the next Bunnings.
Absolutely. I mean, these are things for planning. Absolutely. Government planning, where we put our hospitals, where we put services. And so we need that. We need more Bunnings, clearly.
April, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thanks so much for covering this important issue, and hopefully we can get some more attention and we can count every family in.